Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. You join me in Joliet, Illinois, charging up the Rivian R1T. And I've been road tripping this car out. I'll have the truck out. I'll have the full video on Out of Spec Motoring coming in a few weeks. I'm actually heading out to go buy a car. Hopefully you'll see that in tomorrow's video. But I've actually been a little bit frustrated charging this. What a surprise. Yes, the charging infrastructure has had a million issues, and we'll maybe touch on that a little bit. But actually, with the truck, you see, even though it's cold outside, it was snowy the whole first bit of the trip, I'm actually overheating the battery pack in the truck, and it cannot keep itself cool. So I want to talk about the Rivian thermal management problem. I remember this from the summertime really becoming a real annoyance. But I'm surprised it's happening here in the winter. So let me walk you through the problem, show you it happening, and then talk about what I think Rivian might be able to do to remedy the situation a bit. You join me now at an EA station where there's a Kia Niro plugged into the 350 kilowatt charger, charging to full. He's been here almost an hour and a half. That is just the nature of EA stations. You take the slowest charging cars, plug them into the fastest ones, and charge it to full. And that's the way to do it. I'm sure he has no idea what he's doing, but he's getting power. Nothing we can do. The only thing is, should be using one of the slower ones. That's a little top tip for some of you new EV drivers. But let's hop into the Rivian. Actually, before we do that, let me tell you a little bit about the truck. This is the Rivian R1T large battery pack. So there's actually going to be a max pack coming on top of this, they claim. I don't know for sure if it's going to happen. I hope it happens. I have a reservation in for one. I'd like to get more range, more charging speed, more than anything. But it's a large pack, 135-ish kilowatt hour usable battery pack. Well, maybe 125 usable, roughly. Truck's looking nice and dirty from the road trip. And, it's a 400 volt system architecture, high 400 volt. It's like 450 volts full, roughly. And so with a 500 amp charger, you can actually get pretty good speeds. It'll peak at about 220, 221 kilowatts is the most I've seen on this. And of course, that ramps up as state of charge increases in the beginning. So that's all good. I mean, pretty reasonable, I would say. Would love if it was a high voltage system. But I think really my main issue with the truck is on road trips, it cannot keep the battery temperatures all situated. So let me explain a little bit about what's going on here. There are two things with an electric car that can really heat up the battery pack quite quickly. The first is driving the piss out of it, taking it to the track, getting it red hot. We all know that happens. However, in those situations, it's typically not the battery pack that gets hot. It's typically the inverters first are the ones to spike heat, and then maybe your motors, and then the battery pack. There are some cars that are designed to maybe not have full outright power, but to have the entire system come up to temperature together is the idea. I'm thinking Mach-E GT Performance and Unbridled mode. They turn down the power, so the whole system kind of thermal throttles at the same time. And Porsche Taycan's pretty good at this, although you can still smoke the inverters on a Taycan. The Rivian, when driving, the inverter temperatures go crazy hot, is my guess, because every time I tow in the mountains of Colorado, going downhill for long grades, my regen just shuts off. I mean, I can almost not recapture anything more than 1 mile of driving going down some of the hills, and that's really a shame. And they've issued some software updates to try and fix that problem, but honestly, the behavior still persists, and it's really a hardware limitation in that case. But of course, I'm going to have, 7, 8, 9,000 pounds on the back of the truck, steep grades, the inverters will get hot, not the end of the world. The end of the world is, in my opinion, when you get to a DC fast charging station and instead of getting 210, 215 kilowatts, you're getting 90 or 100 because the battery pack is hot. That's a problem. So let's use this charger case in point. It's 37 degrees outside and the charger is not outputting full power. It's actually only giving us 150 kilowatts on a 350 kilowatt charger. The truck actually had preconditioned. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And I did everything I could to try and, show this problem happening. It happened to me all day yesterday, this overheat problem. And my guess is even at 150 kilowatts, we are going to see a serious derating here, maybe by the time we hit 30 or 40%. That's my guess. We're going to let that go on as I continue to explain the situation, though. So those of you who watch this channel know, of course, that batteries are very sensitive to temperature when fast charging. If they get too hot, they of course have to slow down because there's a maximum allowable temperature in the software that's typically related to what the hardware can handle, so you don't have extreme degradation or even a thermal runaway situation. And then there's also cold temperature related issues where if the battery pack is too cold, you obviously can't get that much power. I just put out a video, I think about a week ago, showing the Ioniq 5's battery preconditioning update and how big of a difference that makes. So, you know, when we start thinking about electric cars and how to optimize them, it's actually really early days. It's really complicated if you want to get the most out of the car, and that's what I'd like to test and to find out. But the Rivian does not make it so easy to basically get the most out of the truck, and I think there's more they can do. So case in point, let's say I plug in at 1% state of charge like I did yesterday at a charging station. It was about freezing outside, maybe a little bit below freezing, plus or minus a little bit. So 32 0 degrees Celsius. And, drove the truck on the highway. All the airflow should have been cooled down. The truck did precondition. Actually, you know what? I did not precondition the truck. One of the things I did for that particular one was I wanted to make sure the truck arrived with as cold a battery as possible. So I selected a charging station just next to the charger. And the reason for that is when you select a high power charger in the Rivian, it will actually warm the battery up to get it to the point where it can charge the fastest. But also it will cool down the battery pack to try and get it colder to give you more of a thermal envelope so that you can get max speeds for longer. The problem is the truck doesn't tell you what's going on. It doesn't say if it's heating or cooling or trying to normalize the temperature in the battery pack, which we're going to discuss. But in that particular case, because it was really the first big charge of the day, I had just left the house, it was warming up the battery pack, is my guess, if I were to select it. So I arrived with a pretty cold battery pack, plugged in, got the full 200 kilowatts or so, walked its way up. Then as soon as I hit 25% state of charge, wham! Batteries had to slow down because it's cooling. So it says like slower charging due to battery cooling or something like that. I'll show you a clip here in a second. And, I'm down to under 100 kilowatts. And I'm like, the first charge on a big trip where I have to go out to Michigan, sort of a time crunch. And I'm just so totally limited on how fast I can charge. Really a shame because of battery temperature. We are down to 96 kilowatts. Are you freaking kidding me? This is insane. I don't know what to do. I don't think we should use 350 kilowatt chargers if the truck is just going to throttle like this. We really need to do a test where I take two Rivians, plug one into a 150 and one into a 350 on the same time and see which actually gets more energy in it, because at the end of the day, if you're just charging to 25%, this will be way faster. But if you're doing a 60, 70% charge like we're intending to do, it might make sense to take the slower chargers. Damn, this really sucks. So you guys just saw some of that situation, what happened there. And I expect actually, even though we're not getting full power here in Illinois, we're only doing 155 kilowatts because the charger's limiting us. I'm pretty sure we're going to see this slower due to battery overheat. So we're going to wait for that to happen. So let's talk about what's happening when this situation goes on. Most of the time when the message comes up that it's slower because the battery's overheating, it is because there is a portion of the battery pack that has reached or is about to reach its maximum allowable temperature. The reason I say that is because as soon as the message pops up, I can see this thing just fall off a cliff. It just kills the charging. And that shows me that it's like, whoa, something's hot. We got to slow down. It also tells me that they're not pre-cooling the battery pack. So if you were to plug in, you're getting 200 kilowatts, there should be something in the truck that says, hey, I know that the battery's going to get hot, so let me run the cooling system ahead of time so that it doesn't run into a bad situation. Taycan does that, Tesla does that, others do that. There's also some really fine tuning that they have to do here, because of course, in order to top charge quite quickly, you actually need the battery a little bit warmer than you would at lower states of charge to get fast charging up top. So that's definitely going to require a little bit of tuning. Just had to pause there because an ID4 owner was trying to plug into the 350 kilowatt charger that I was using. The same thing happened yesterday, actually. And they're like, oh, I need the 350. I'm like, well, your car is a 2021 and it can't charge it anything more than 135, so just use the 150. And they're like, no, I need to get the most of my free charging. And I'm like, that's not how this works. So yeah, they're going to use the 150 because we're already charging on the 350 and it's limited anyway to 150 kilowatts. Welcome to EV charging in today's world. Just getting crazy, isn't it? So here's the real issue with the battery pack. You know, Rivian can do everything to try and pre-cool or preheat the battery pack depending on what's going on. But in my impression, the battery pack is hot spotting somewhere, which means something in the system is actually reaching the maximum allowable temperature, but the cooling systems can't get to it. And because the Rivian battery is a little bit of a double stack situation, because they don't have cooling channels everywhere in the high voltage system, my guess is that when they engineered the system, something is getting hot that they didn't expect to be as big of an issue as it is. And I think it's a hardware problem more than software. Now, if you have a hot spot in your battery pack and you can't cool it, you're only as strong as your weakest link, right? So there's almost actually nothing they can do there. The only thing that they could do in this particular scenario, and I'd be really curious to watch future software updates roll out, is if they allow the maximum temperature to go higher. And they say, okay, you know what, I'm going to really chill down the battery pack before a charging session, or allow it to, you know, charge up a little bit higher. And get a little bit hotter. That might work as well. And that's really it. So they either have to cool the battery pack harder. If they can't cool the part that's getting hot, they need to then allow the temperature to get higher. If they can't do that, then we're stuck with bad thermals on the Rivian. There's just no way around it. It really is a bit of a problem, I think, these days. So not totally sure what to do about it. Now, let me tell you a little bit about data and gathering data off this thing. And just as a little bit of a joke, you can see the ID4 here is getting their free charging, and they definitely are going to get everything the car can ask for out of that 150 kilowatt charger. The Nero over there on the 350, basically at full, the dude's asleep in the car. So there's only one charger left. We're plugged into a 350, only getting 157 because it's degraded. I've noticed a big issue with these Signet units, you know, along I-80, where basically I've been driving out to Michigan right now. Come on, Rivian system. You know what's going on? This cord is touching the screen. There we go. I left Denver and I drove. Now I'm basically in Chicago and heading out to Ann Arbor. This whole stretch out here are all of the older Signet units like this. And I think they're all degrading for one reason or another. Inside that little gray area are the actual chargers. These are just the dispensers. And I'm pretty sure the power modules are just failing one by one. Really crazy, sending mixed signals to the truck and just really giving us bad charging. So not only do we have to battle failing infrastructure, we have to battle failing thermals in a brand new truck. I mean, just seems a bit crazy today, doesn't it? So let's talk about data. The Rivian doesn't have a way to display CAN data on the screen anymore. Previously, there was a way where you could, I believe, hold down, I forget exactly what it was, but we used to have access to the Ride app. And there was like a whole bunch of things you would put in. You'd enter a little code, and then an extra application would pop up here called Ride. And the code was RIDE with the numbers. So it was like, I forget, whatever you spell out RIDE with numbers would be it. And then we could load up all of the data we wanted. We could see battery temperature, minimum, maximum cell temperature. We could see requested charging power. We could see the amperage going into the battery pack. We could see the motor power output, temperatures of inverters. We could see everything we wanted to see. And what we found, at least during that time, was that we never, and myself and other Rivian enthusiasts, we never saw the Rivian battery pack really getting above 45 degrees Celsius. That seemed to be the maximum temperature that it would go. Well, at least she's running the ID4 down, but she's only getting 41 kilowatts at 16% because her battery's cold. It's freezing outside. I think she lives locally. So gotta have that 350, man. We have so much work to do to educate people. And so we started a new channel called Out of Spec Guide to solve that specific problem. I mean, it's getting a little bit crazy out here, folks, to be honest. It really is. I hate to paint a bad picture, but I sort of am not recommending you buy CCS cars if you go on a road trip here in America. That's for sure. Buy a Tesla or a gas car. I've been saying that for a while. It still stands. Just getting a little bit wild. So let's talk battery temperature maximum. 45 roughly degrees Celsius is pretty much nothing on a battery pack. I mean, 50 is pretty toasty. 55, okay, that seems like a reasonable, like, let's not let it get above there. Now, it all depends on cell chemistry and everything, but 45 is relatively low. So in speaking with some Rivian enthusiasts, there's Brandon Flash, there's a few other YouTubers, there's my friend Bryce, who's an awesome knowledge powerhouse on Rivian stuff, who totally agrees on all these thermal issues, by the way. Maybe he'll chime in the comments. And we've done podcasts with Bryce before. The thing is, they should just raise the maximum temperature. And I think that will solve most of these issues here with the Rivian from overheating. So basically what I'm recommending, and I think it saves a little bit of time, is on that first charging stop of your long trip in an R1T. Same also goes for Hummer EV as well, actually, because they have thermal issues. Don't precondition to that first charger unless it's like well below freezing outside. But if you're cruising along and you get a whole battery out, this seems to heat up the battery pack okay while driving, and then you might get a little bit slower charging up front due to it being cold, but then you get so much longer at high charging power. On a road trip though, after multiple sessions, the Rivian seems to try to cool down the battery pack from charger to charger, and so I have been preconditioning from charger to charger, and that has been working pretty well. I just wish we would get more data out of the trucks. And with that said, there's actually now someone who's hacked the CAN system. I'm going to be digging into that soon so we can get all the nerdy data back out of the trucks, because we need to know exactly what's going on here. We need to know what the limitations are. But ultimately, for the non-nerds, those of you who probably don't watch this channel, it's a bit of a disappointment to buy a $90,000 truck these days and have to deal with so many issues. First of all, you have to deal with charging issues. And that's not a fault of Rivian. They're building out their own network as fast as they can. It's very expensive. It's a very labor intensive process. And so unfortunately today you kind of buy into the public charging network when you buy a Rivian, and it sucks. And then also when you do get high power charging over and over, the truck cannot handle it from a thermal perspective. I really wish this could be better situation. I really wish Rivian engineers could work on their temperature management in the battery pack. If you want to look at just awesome battery pack temperature management, watch my Porsche Taycan road trip that I took in Germany. The video went live this week. I was hammering it top speed down the Autobahn after another, thrashing the car. And guess what? Every single time, even if the battery was hot, I got really good charging speeds. I mean, just so impressive what that can do. This is a battery pack twice the size, but seemingly half the thermal capacity. So there's a lot more work to be done. And of course, just to wrap up the video, even without high charging power here and it being very cold outside, we have thermal throttled slower while battery is cooling, and a little bit of a shame. It really is. It actually is almost no different with this truck if you're doing a deeper charge to charge on a 350 or a 150 because of the thermal capabilities of the system. If you need a quick top up, always go for a 350. If you're doing a deep charge, well, maybe just use a 150 because it doesn't actually make that much of a difference. So there you guys go. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I can't wait to share tomorrow's video with you, but just a quick one on my drive out to go collect this new car. Rivian, I hope you can find a solution to this, because it almost takes the truck from being one of the best vehicles on sale, which is totally correct. I love my Rivian. I just do not love to road trip this truck. And a lot of it comes down to the thermal management. And of course, the charging network we have to rely on, which is EVgo, ChargePoint, Electrify America, Shell Recharge. It's all messy, all messy. And again, I keep reiterating, I hate to be this guy, but I also don't hate to be this guy, because it's very true. If you want easy road tripping, buy a freaking Tesla or a gas car. I'm just sitting here frustrated. It's crazy.